This is Leap the Elk and Little Princess Cottongrass by Helga Kjellin. Have you ever been in a large forest and seen a strange black pool hidden deep among the tall trees? It looks bewitched and a little frightening. All is still. Fir trees and pines huddle close and silent on all sides. Sometimes the trees bend cautiously and shyly over the water, as if wondering what might be hidden in the dark depths. There's another forest growing in the water, and it too is full of wonder and stillness. Strangest of all, never have the two forests been able to speak to each other. By the edge of the pool and out in the water are soft tussocks covered with brown bear moss and woolly white cotton grass. All is so quiet, not a sound, not a flutter of life, not a trembling breath, that all of nature seems to be holding its breath, listening with beating heart. Soon. And then a gentle murmur stirs the crowns of the tall firs, and they lean together and begin to sing softly. Yes, we have seen him, far, far away, and soon he will be here. He is coming, he is coming. A murmur sweeps through the forest. Bushes rustle and whisper to each other. The cotton grass blossoms bend and bow back and forth. Yes, he is coming, they say, while the still waters begin to murmur, he is coming, he is coming. You hear a few twigs breaking far away. They come closer, come together. There's a crash of snapping bushes, branches, and twigs, a clatter of fast-moving footsteps, and a heavy panting. A large elk has thrust itself through the forest to the bank of the pool, where it stops, swings its panting muzzle, and snuffs eagerly. The majestic crown of horns shakes, the elk's nostrils quiver, and then it stands still for a moment. A second later, with gigantic leaps, it disappears through the swaying tufts to the far side of the forest. That much is true. Now, here is a fairy tale about it. The sun was shining like gold on the meadow of Dream Castle. It was summer, and the grass had 1,000 fragrant blossoms. A little girl, rosy and delicate, sat among all the flowers, combing her long, pale yellow hair. It sifted like summer gold through her small fingers. A golden crown was lying in the meadow beside her. This girl was the princess of Dream Castle, and she had slipped away from the high, stately chamber where her father, the king, and her mother, the queen, sat on golden chairs with the scepter and orb to rule their people. She wished to be alone and free, and had come to the flowering meadow to play. The meadow had always been her playground. This princess was small and slim, still a child. She wore a gown whiter than white, made of silk and satin and muslin, as thin as gauze. Princess Cottongrass, that was what they call her. She combed her fair hair with small slender fingers and smiled at the shining strands. An elk snuffed and stalked past. She lifted her eyes. "Oh, who are you?" "I am Longleg Leap. What do they call you?" "I am Princess Cottongrass." She lifted her crown from the meadow to show that it was so. The elk stopped to look at the princess long and searchingly, then lowered its head. "You are beautiful, little one." The princess rose and moved closer. She leaned towards the elk's trembling muzzle and stroked it gently. "How big and stately you are! And you have a crown, too! Let me come with you! Let me sit behind your neck and then carry me out into life." The elk hesitated. "The world is big and cold, little child, and you are so small. The world is full of evil and wickedness. It will hurt you." No, I am young and warm. I have warmth enough for everyone. I am small and good and want to share the good I have." Princess, the forest is dark and the roads are dangerous. But you are with me. You are great and strong and can easily defend us both. The elk tossed its head and shook its mighty crown of horns to agree. Its eyes looked fiery. The princess clapped her small hands. Good, good, but you are too tall. Bend down so that I can climb up. Obediently, the elk lay down, and soon the princess was sitting on its back. I am ready, and now you must show me the world. The elk rose slowly, afraid of unseating the little one. Hold on tight to my horns. And it set off with leaps and bounds. The princess had never had more fun. There were so many new and beautiful things to see. She had never been beyond the meadow at Dream Castle before, and now they were running over hill and dale, over plains and mountains. Where are you taking me? She asked. To Forest Moss, Leap answered. I live there, and it is a long way off. No one comes there. Evening was coming, and the princess was hungry and sleepy. Are you changing your mind already? Teased the elk. It's too late to turn round, but don't be afraid. Wonderful berries grow in the marsh where I live. You can eat them. They traveled a while, and when the forest began to thin, the princess looked out over a mile-long marsh where tufts of sedge came together in soft hollows and hillocks, and where the little stunted bushes on the bank hadn't the courage to follow. Here we are, said Leap, and bent down so that the princess could dismount. Now we shall have supper. Immediately the princess forgot all about sleep and began to jump lightly from tuft to tuft, just like Leap, to pick the delicious berries. She and Longleg Leap shared them delightedly. Leap said, We must hurry on before it gets too dark. And once again Princess Cottongrass climbed onto his broad back. Leap set off, sure-footed, across the marsh, stepping confidently on the tufts as if he knew they would hold him. And he did know. After all, he was born there. Who is that dancing there? Asked the princess. They are the elves, but be careful of them. They seem sweet and friendly, but never trust them. Remember what I tell you. Don't speak to them. Just hold on to my horns tightly and pretend you don't notice them. Yes, the princess promised she would. The elves had already caught sight of them. They came forward and circled around and danced up and down in front of the elk, floating tantalizingly close to the little princess. But, remembering what Leap had just told her, she clung to his horns with all her might. Who are you? Who are you? Asked the elves. Hundreds of questions were all around, and the princess felt them like the cold breath of the wind, but she did not answer. Then the tiny elves in their white veils became bolder. They tugged at her dress and her long yellow hair. Leap snorted and began to run. Suddenly the princess realized that the golden crown on her head was slipping, and she was afraid it would fall off. Imagine what Father King and Mother Queen, who gave it to her, would say. And she forgot what Leap told her and called to the elves, at the same time letting go of one horn to clasp her crown. At that moment the elves had power over her. Not altogether, because she still clung to the elk's horns with one hand, but with joyous mocking laughter they snatched the shining crown from her head and floated away over the marsh. "Oh, my crown, moaned Princess Cottongrass. "Why didn't you obey me?" Leap scolded her. "You have only yourself to blame. Probably you will never get your golden crown back, but you are lucky it was not worse." Yet the princess could not imagine anything worse than what just happened. Leap walked on, and soon the princess spied a clump of small trees on an island in the middle of the marsh. "Here is where I live," said Leap. "This is where we shall sleep." The low hill rose above the marsh, and it was dry and delightful among the fir trees and pines. The princess kissed her dear friend Leap good night, then undressed and hung her gown neatly on a branch. She lay down and was soon asleep, with the long-legged elk standing guard over her. It was almost night, and a few small stars were twinkling in the sky. Next morning, the princess was awakened by the soft touch of the elk's muzzle on her forehead. She jumped up quickly, stretched in the golden-red morning light, and then collected some dewdrops to drink in her hands. A small chain with a golden heart on it was hanging from her neck and caught the sunlight like fire. "Today I will go bare," she exclaimed, "and then you will carry me on your back and show me more of the world." "Yes," said the elk, unable to deny her anything. It was awake all night watching over the strange, white little girl on the ground, and that morning there were tears in its eyes. It did not understand why, except it felt autumn approaching and was seized by a desire not to be alone anymore. Suddenly, the elk dashed away into the forest. The fair-haired princess found it very difficult to hold on. Branches whipped her face and shoulders, and the little golden heart danced on its chain. But before long, Leap calmed down and slackened his pace. They were traveling through a large, strange forest. The long branches of the firs were covered with hanging moss. The tree roots bent like snakes, and large lichen-covered boulders seemed to threaten them from the side of the path. The princess had never seen such a queer place before. "What is that moving deep in the woods?" she asked. "I think I see long green hair and a pair of white arms waving to me." "It is the witch of the woods," said Leap. "Answer her politely, but do not ask her for anything. And whatever you do, hold tight to my horns." Yes, the princess promised she would hold on tight. The witch glided closer. She did not want to show herself entirely. She hid halfway behind a tree. Curiously and slyly she peered at the elk and the girl. The princess scarcely dared look her way, but she could tell that the witch had icy green eyes and a mouth red as blood. Then the witch began to slither from tree to tree, following the elk as it ran. She knew Leap well, but was puzzled by the little white one with the golden hair. She called, "What is your name?" "I am Princess Cottongrass of Dream Castle," the girl answered shyly, taking care not to ask the witch's name. Of course, she knew who she was. "What are you carrying in front of you?" the witch asked. "It is my finest gown," replied the princess with a little more courage. "Oh, let me see it," the witch begged. Of course she may, and the princess let go with one hand to show the witch her white dress. In a trice, the witch snatched the dress and disappeared into the forest. "Why did you let go of my horns?" said Leap. "If you had let go with both hands, you would have had to follow the witch and probably never have come back." "But my dress, sobbed Princess Cottongrass. Yet after a while she forgot it, and the day passed, and that night the princess slept under the fir trees, with Leap standing quietly beside her to keep watch. When she woke in the morning, the elk was gone. "Leap, Longleg Leap, where are you?" she called fearfully, and jumped up. He came through the undergrowth, breathing heavily. He had been on top of a hill, looking east, sniffing the air, and had scented something. What? He could not tell, but his coat was wet, and his legs were trembling. He seemed to want to move on, and bent down to let the princess climb on his back. Then they were gone in a rush, galloping east. He hardly heard when she called to him, and rarely answered. As if in a fever, he broke through the tangled forest at a furious rate. "Where are we going?" asked Princess Cottongrass. "To the pool," was the answer. "Deep in the forest is a pool, and that is where I go when autumn is coming. No person has ever been there, but you shall see it." Abruptly, the tree trunks opened up, and there was the water, shining brown-black with flecks of greenish gold. "Hold on tight," Leap warned. "There is danger under the water. Watch your golden heart." "Yes, what strange water," said the princess, bending forward to look more closely. But, oh dear, at that moment the chain with the golden heart slipped over her head and dropped into the pool. "Oh, my heart, the golden heart that my mother gave me the day I was born. Oh, what shall I do?" She was quite inconsolable, and she stared at the water, searching for her heart. "Come," said Leap, "it is dangerous for you here. Looking for one thing, you will forget everything else." But the princess wanted to stay. She had to find her heart. "Go, my friend, let me sit here alone. I know I shall find the heart." She flung her arms about the elk's bent head, kissed it, and stroked it softly. Then, small and slim and undressed, she sat down on a grassy hillock. For a long time the elk stood quite still and looked at the small girl. But when she no longer seemed to notice that he was there, he turned, and, with hesitant steps, disappeared into the forest. Many years have passed. Still, Princess Cottongrass sits and looks wonderingly into the water for her heart. She is no longer a little girl. Instead, a slender plant crowned with white cotton stands, leaning over the edge of the pool. Now and then the elk returns, stops, and looks at it tenderly. Only he knows that this is the princess from Dream Castle. Perhaps she nods and smiles, for he's an old friend. She does not want to follow him back. She cannot follow any more, as long as she is under the spell. The spell lies in the pool, and far, far under the water lies a lost heart. Fagra prästinna